And we're live. Welcome back to the After Dram. Welcome to you, the viewer, our malt mates, and to the fantastic panel who's coming in one by one. One by one, they're going to be here, I can tell you. And what that means, it's time to unwind. It's time for us to sit back. We're going to put our feet up. We're going to grab a dram, and like always, a dram or two. And we're going to start to relax, and we're going to start to say what's on our mind just a little bit more, because we want Ralfy to come on, so we're not really mean in the first part to each other or stuff that he says. But maybe in this one, I don't think he's ever going to see it, so we'll say whatever comes to mind. Right, Nick? Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And we're going to pick up our others, and there we go. We've got one more, we've got two more, and one more coming in. So I'm going to start with the very first question. Oh, sorry. We need our introductions. I'm going to make everyone the same. Again, actually, I don't think I did the introductions in the first one, did I?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. I got stressed out with having that extra person. I tell you, I was messed up. Hi, my fine feathered friends. My name's Dolph. I am the president of the Alberta Scotch Society. I'm your host tonight. And I'm having a great time so far. And my wife's helping me out, and she's pushing little buttons for me on the side. And she's trying to find my name on the side, and it's way up top, so you're just not going to find me. It's okay. That's me, the Spirit of Yeg. And I'm the Spirit of Edmonton on Facebook, on Twitter, and on the Spirit of Yeg. That's for Instagram. Thank you very much. And we're going to go to Don, who's laughing at me, so I'm putting him on it. You can look at him.
I'm Don. You can find me at the Whiskey Dive on all social media. Wow, that's hard.
Yeah. Whiskey with an E because he's American.
Yeah, whiskey with an E because I'm American. And thewhiskeydive.com.
Perfect. All right, Nick, you are up.
I'm Nick. I'm the Black Cat Whiskey, and you can find me on Instagram.
And you said it so fast I couldn't get your quote up. Okay.
Black
no
Cat
banner
Whiskey.
for you. And he's up. And let's go to Kent.
Hi, I'm Kent. I'm also known as Whiskey Ass, and I'm probably going to have to jump on here because I think my company just showed up here. So if I'm in and out, you know where I'm at.
Perfect. I will add you in and out as we go. And Drew.
And I'm out.
Hi, Drew Semper, and I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all that is Drew Semper.
Perfect. And definitely not Whiskey Ass, which set it up there. And Yukon Dave.
I'm still Yukon Dave, coming from my basement.
Still in the basement.
Yukon Dave _EDM.
You know what, Dave? I'd like you to talk a second just about the stuff behind you, because people have asked me about what's behind you, and they said posters. And I said it's more than posters, and Dave's got an answer. So tell us what you got.
These are all metal signs from going way back. I got stuff going back into the 20s. It's just stuff that I like to collect. I like old advertising. That's kind of what got me to where I am today.
Perfect. That's how you got your job at Two Brewers, is because you had the advertising?
Kinda.
Okay.
I started doing their advertising, their point of sale stuff.
Okay. And
if I could do it.
Okay, there we go. There we see the other. Yeah. And the workout equipment. Oh, I didn't know you worked out back there, Dave. Oh, we get to see everything.
Well, not everything.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I'm not wearing pants.
Stand up. I don't believe you. Stand up. I'll give you $5. No. All right. Sorry. So we're going to start with the elephant in the room, which what we all were thinking about when we read this chapter. It's chapter 7, The Philosopher's Picnic. Now, my thing was Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, and I said that to people, and most got it. What WTF? What was going on? I would like somebody, and Drew's lovely wife had an opinion as well. So I'd like to hear that. She might not want to pop into the video, but maybe you'll say it if she doesn't want to say it, because I need some help trying to figure out what's going on in his mind at that moment. Chapter 7. Oh, and I just want to put up the drams while you guys are thinking about that. These were the drams that were inspired this delve into I don't know what type of land. When he poured his 7 drams that night, that's what he had before he started talking about the philosophers and when they all came in. So just
Isn't
wanted to
there
put
8
that
there?
up there for a quick second.
There's 8 there.
Yeah.
He had a welcome whiskey.
He had a
for
welcome whisker,
teachers.
the teacher's Highland
Okay.
Cream.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay.
He doesn't call it welcome whiskey like we do, but
Like a star.
a starter. And that was his only blend as well. So that was kind of good.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think Nicole's ready. I'm going to put Nicole back on. All right. So thoughts on chapter 7, lady and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Ladies, because there's 2 that had an opinion in there.
Yeah. I can read Sheila's one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I thought the whole chapter was insane. I didn't get it at all. But what my wife said, so what she thinks chapter 7 might be saying is that drink, not necessarily whiskey, but definitely in Ralfy in our cases, often makes philosophers and thinkers of us all, expanding on our ideas and perhaps giving the shy or anxious among us an opportunity to speak up. But with too much of it, can tip us over the edge and often resulting in declines into argument, fights, fist fights even, and situations we really wish we could take back the next morning, assuming we remember them at all. So,
And that was terribly nice. I thought that was a nice sentiment and a way to look into it in a positive view, which I was missing completely.
oh yeah,
The only thing I got from it is he was like Alice in Wonderland with the Mad Hatter, like when they had the tea party.
Yep.
And the cat, his cat was talking to him like Alice's cat was talking to Alice with a little bit of an attitude. And when he said, "Who's this guy? I never invited him," the cat said, "Like, just relax, buddy. You'll see in a bit." And I didn't really. Cheshire is the cat from Alice in Wonderland. And his cat is called what? It was an orange cat as
Orange.
well. Amber?
I thought it was
Anyone
just
remember his cat's name? Anyways, so that's where I was with him in this
Marmalade.
chapter. I didn't see any on it. And I was looking into the individual philosophers, seeing how they related. And maybe, my wife's telling me Orlando is the cat's name.
Oh, okay.
But the cat was orange. All right. Anyone else have an opinion on chapter 7?
So, Dave, you can go. I'll go after
All
you.
right.
Wait, Dave first.
So I sit in bed with the girlfriend and I read and she does something else. And I said to her, I said, I can't read this. She goes, what's the problem? I said, I don't understand it. And I just skipped forward. I didn't go back. I couldn't do it.
You were done.
It didn't make any sense. Like it's so different than everything else that was going on. Like all the other chapters, this one was like there was a foreigner put something in there. To me, it just didn't make it didn't work
It didn't flow with the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Got it. It was disjointed. Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
Didn't have that.
for me, it's like a book within a book within a book. The chapters have so many different jumps in it that it's sometimes really hard to follow. And then you get to the philosopher's picnic or picnic for philosophers, but you're reading it and it's like, okay, cool. You like philosophers. I like philosophers, but I've never had the desire to sit down with a bunch of famous philosophers. And he even points out that they're all Greek, which I think is important, but that's for historical purposes. But when you're reading it, like I'm having trouble following it for different reasons, but I feel like part of what it was a preface for the blog and the YouTube in a whole, because when you finally move past that chapter, you get to the point where he's talking to his brother, and his brother's like, you should probably do this and start a vlog or a YouTube, which I feel like was not like a cry for help, but a call to order, if you would.
Okay.
Because, Ralfy worked in a morgue. It's a very lonely job. It's a very morbid job. And,
Probably a lot of contemplation time too, right? So
yeah, well, like he even said it at one point where, you know, it's all like the gives and takes in the world. So it's like you work with death and you appreciate life more, but you also go through his life of, you know, he meets his first like real malt friend, and then he soon passes away, life and death, and then his bar that he always loved going to was now being closed, again, life and death. And now he's bringing in a bunch of deceased philosophers into his home for a drinking picnic.
Yep.
And when he asks where the other philosophers were, his cat replies with, well, they're not coming because they're dead. And
The cat's dead.
wait, what?
Oh, go ahead.
And he just accepts it. It's just, yeah, they're dead. Okay.
Right. It's like, but you have Socrates in your room who's clearly dead. And you're having a conversation with your cat. So I feel like it was a point for Ralfy where it's, you know, he was experiencing being lonely. And I don't know. I try not to read too far into things when they're jumping back and forth as much as they are. But you know, I'm not going to hold that against him because Ralfy isn't an author. We all know this.
Yep.
But I feel like this was a preface to his turning point for actually making malt moments. Because like everything before, when he talks about malt moments, it almost seems like it's forced.
Yeah.
Where he's taking an experience he had and saying that this was a malt moment. And when you read about it, some of them are just really bad experiences, with the exception of his first whiskey tasting where he met Juliet, I think, Janet. Which that, yeah, I would say that was a true malt moment for Ralfy's persona. But yeah, chapter 7 was impossible to read because of how many jump outs and asides and whatever you want to call them, with these weird philosophers having arguments. I almost feel like he was just telling us his drunk story. It was really weird. I guess kind of like Dolph's experience after drinking the Wayne Gretzky's whiskey.
That was horrible. It was disgusting. I'm going to add one more thing because my wife said this, and I like it because I think maybe it comes in here. For him, often throughout the book, he talks about good and bad, the best and worst of humanity, the people he wants to listen to, not listen to, the drams he likes and dislikes. And maybe this was something like that maybe I just didn't get, that he was trying to show a juxtaposition between good and bad somehow. So I would have to read it again with that in mind. But then again, like Dawn said, I might be reading too much into it. And that happens when in university, you read a book and you try to find hidden meanings and you're just making stuff up. And at one point I was in a class and I said, this is what the author thought. And my prof said, I don't think so. And he phones the freaking author who he knows and says, is this what you thought? And he said, no, has nothing to do with it. And I'm in the room because I got a bad mark on this paper. And we have a stay-9 system out of a 9. And I got a 7, which is roughly like 80%. I didn't like it. I went there. I challenged it because at that point I was a bit of a dick then. Not now. And yeah, he actually phones him up. And I don't know if it was really the author or not he phoned up because I'm a 22-year-old at the time, but I think it is. And I read into it too much. So I don't know if we all should stop caring and just take it for what it is, an acid trip, a delve into Alice in Wonderland or whatever it is. But I have to say, when we had our discussions online before this, that was a really long thread of information we had going back and forth.
You know,
Nick,
I thought about it more. I thought about it more, and listening to Dawn, I was struck by the fact that it was a whole bunch of people that were dead. There wasn't a live body. And a lot of his book, he's not relating to people.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a striking note. For us, whiskey and drinking whiskey is very social. We will occasionally drink on our own, but he drinks solo much more so. He doesn't have those connections with people. He doesn't have those relationships he talks with. And his relationships is with his beans, his cat who has passed.
Yeah.
Who's dead?
Yeah. It really strikes me as he doesn't want to be around people. He doesn't want to make connections, and he wants to create barriers, which we try and break down in the whiskey world, which was kind of interesting. And I think that annoyed me.
But
that he's putting up these walls, and I'm like, no. Walls down, walls down.
And I think go ahead, Dave.
I kind of looked at it that Ralfy as a kid always saw his dad sitting in front of the fireplace by himself having a dram, and that seems to be where he's moved to. He's kind of copied his dad, sitting alone in front of the fireplace.
Yeah, with his best friend, the whiskey, which is fun. And Nicky does have friends, but they're very chosen, and they're not the type of people I think that oppose him. They're people who kind of pump him up a little bit, right? Like
he also says that he also would prefer to drink with a complete stranger. It's almost like he doesn't want to taint the experience.
Oh, okay, sure. I can go for that. And I'll show this last comment from Nick. I found chapter 7 very much like Jack Kurak rant. It probably needed to be read to an awesome beat. So maybe. Or
like some dubstep.
Iambic pentameter or something. Just maybe. So, speaking of dead people, Sean had suggested this as he's not dead. Sean is not dead. He's somewhere in here, but he had forgotten. Who would we like to? Because we don't have these philosophers. Obviously, they're dead. Who would we like to have a dram with? That's passed away. That's dead. That we could not have a dram with. I'm going to make it anyone you want. Who would you like to have a dram with? And it's got to be, it doesn't have to be whiskey. Let's just say alcoholic thing. Anyone?
You said non-alcoholic related?
No, doesn't matter. Who cares? Just you want to have a drink and talk to this person.
Probably Theodore Roosevelt.
Cool. FDR. Okay.
Why? So Theodore Roosevelt is from I don't know, 20 minutes from where I grew up in Long Island, New York. Or at least that's where his house is.
Okay.
When I was in Cub Scouts, we were the Rough Riders.
Okay.
So every year we took kind of like I'm not sure what you would call it, but we would all travel to Theodore Roosevelt's house, which is now a museum, and walk around there kind of like in honor and memory of, who our pack was named after. But, for the U.S., he did a lot. He was a part of a lot of military campaigns. He was, I would say he was my favorite president, but he also established all of the national park systems. So I find him extremely fascinating. And actually the distillery that was the first one in Long Island since Prohibition's entire whiskey line is named after Theodore Roosevelt, whether it's the Big Stick, something Moose, and then the Rough Rider whiskey. But I don't know. He's just always been so fascinating in my childhood and my education that I think he would be a really cool, middle of American history person to talk to.
Perfect. Good answer. I would too. Drew, do you have someone?
I was kind of bouncing around. Churchill would be cool, but the other ones I was thinking was the Wright brothers. I'd love to sit around and chat with the guys that literally, the ones that more started the aircraft and flight.
Okay. And that relates to your job as well. So you have kind of a reason to go for this. Okay. Let's go with you, Nick. Do you have someone in mind?
I would love to sit down with Hedy Lamarr.
And why?
Well,
Actress? Why?
everybody knows actress, but she also created that first set of programming used for Wi-Fi. She was an inventor. She did so much with her time. She was a film producer. She did so much more than acting. People don't realize it. And that to me is just fascinating. Like, she was a smart lady.
Okay, done. I like that. And Laura had several, but well, her Catholic background's coming up. My wife said Jesus is one, and good. Let's talk to Jesus just to see. I don't want to insult anyone. I'm going to stop. If he was the savior, or if he was just some guy that had a great idea, I'd follow a guy with a great idea. But I'm stopping. She's telling me to stop. Okay,
Go to Dave.
No, I'm not going to go to Dave yet. The other persons she had, they were all feminists, or they're Western Canadian feminists, and she had a whole list of them. I said, I don't think they've ever had a dram. Maybe they wouldn't like the dram. So that's why I changed this a little bit to whatever you want, just for my lovely wife, so we could have this discussion later. Dave, what you got, buddy?
Boy, that was a question that got me thinking. I spent way too much time on this and came up with, I'm still kind of a blank. I mean, Drew, you said Churchill, and I looked Churchill as a young man or Churchill after the war. And at different points in time, they've got so much experience. I looked at, was it August Bush from Anheuser-Busch? I looked at Buffalo Bill Cody. There's just a pile of guys. I looked at Gandhi.
Oh, that'd be good. Good one.
You know, I still want to sit down with what's his name? He's not dead, so I couldn't put him in that thing. The music guy. But there's just so many guys. The opportunities were endless. And I said, well, they're all dead, so it's not going to happen. So I'm not going to spend any more time on this.
You're so pragmatic, Dave. They're all dead. Why am I wasting my time with it?
Oh, but it was a great question.
I think so too. Yeah. And these were my wives: Simone de Beauvoir, Joan of Arc, Florence Nightingale, Marie Curie, George Eliot, aka Mary Ann Evans. So a female writer who had to write her pen name as a male. And me, this sounds horrible, but I want to talk to, if they have to be dead, it's Hitler and Stalin. I want to hear from these guys what's going on in their heads. And just because I'm called Dolph doesn't mean I love Hitler. Okay. I want to just know the people who have been most villainized for a good reason in the 19th century, 20th century. I want to know what's going on in their heads. I would love to see Lenin, and let's go back even further and talk to Napoleon. I want to just talk to these people who have ruled and destroyed lives completely. What was going on in your head?
But when you said that, I mean, Hitler during the war, or Hitler when he was really younger, and that's again where I was undecided, because their lives had changed so much. I watched a show on Hitler. I watched a show on Stalin. I watched a show on Churchill. Yeah, what an evolution these guys had. I watched a thing on Lincoln, Washington, and
it's kind of interesting too that the guys are picking guys and the ladies are picking ladies. I think that's really interesting. Just got to say it. So, and Marcel's got this on the side. He says, how about Wes Montgomery and his alter ego, the waltzing weather hog? Wes was from Fort Saskatchewan and was an experienced imbiber. Wow, that would have been a perspective on drinks. Well, I guess he's using alcohol to imbibe people in different ways. So
I've got a Wes Montgomery story. When I was going to high school, my buddy's dad was a liquor rep.
Okay.
And Wes mentioned them all the time. And those guys were all, he was providing Wes with tons of free booze.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to change the thought process, and I want a Canadian, which is something I was thinking about. Oh, she's got the Glenbergie 10 that Sean was talking about. Oh, and it's almost done. Well, I feel sorry, but you did enjoy it, so that's good. So my Canadian, I'll tell you right now, is Michael Bublé, because he tells me when he goes drinking, he's paying.
He's not dead.
He does. If I'm drinking, I'm paying. I like you, buddy, you and me. And apart from that, if it can't be Canadian, It was two actors, and I told my wife this came up on Friends. Who would you be allowed to sleep with? They said this thing, these 10 people. I don't want that. I want 10 people I'm allowed to take off for a week with and just have fun. So my people is so Michael Bublé's one, Brad Pitt's the other, and
They're alive.
I said they're allowed to be alive. Brad Pitt and the other one, I forget his name. How did I forget his name? Ocean's 11 with Brad Pitt.
Oh, George Clooney.
George Clooney. So those are my three guys.
I
Probably my guy crushes. We could call it that. But if they ever called me up, said, Dolph, let's go out for a week, I'm calling in sick. I'm doing something. And my wife would have to understand. She would just have to.
They won't do that. Thank goodness.
They will never do that, she says. But you know what? Maybe.
Stop.
Okay. Anyone else? Some Canadian. Let's go Canadian. Dave, go.
You know, I thought about this when that question first came up, and I'd love to talk to my grandfather now that I'm an adult versus talking to him when I was a kid.
That's a great answer, buddy.
Yeah, me too.
That's
Like
fantastic.
he lived in Chemainus, BC, and everybody knew him. Like he
Okay.
but he was just grandpa. I'd come over there and he'd go, yeah, go see your grandmother. That was the end of the conversation. So I'd love to sit and talk to him as an adult.
Yes.
Because
I
he never
agree.
grew up. He was a child. Like, he was crazy.
All right. Any other?
Canadian.
Great answer.
I'd either go Jewel State or Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds. All our grandparents as well. Ryan Reynolds is good. I like the actors. I would say Trudeau as well. So I keep coming up with things I would like to do. Like the original Trudeau, when he gave the finger to the people on the train going through BC. I'd like to know what's going on in his head at that point in time.
Yeah.
Nicole, Canadian?
I've got two that I'm sort of tossing between: Lucy Maud Montgomery
Oh, good.
Nice.
Yep.
and Lauren Harris.
Who's Lauren Harris?
Who can
Lauren
you tell me
Harris
about
was
Lauren
one of the
Harris?
group of seven.
And
Oh, okay.
Got it.
So
Okay.
group of seven, I love the art. And Lucy Maud Montgomery, Anna Green Gables.
Yeah.
So I've got a connection to PEI, and it resonated with me. So I would love to be able to sit down and talk to her.
Well, as soon as you said PI, all I can think is Stompin' Tom Connors.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Completely.
going to a friend's house tomorrow, and he's from PEI, and Stompin' Tom hung out with his brother all the time, and my buddy Paul was just a youngster, and Tom would always say, "Hey, come on, Paul, come sing with me." Like, I just couldn't believe it.
You want to go to PI? I'm there with you. The Shaws are like a plague on that island. The family's all from there. So we'd have a place to stay, and I'm guessing I think they'd be a little bit like me, maybe. But I got to reiterate again: guys all pick guys, and girls all pick girls. And my wife in the background.
No.
Oh,
One of mine was a girl.
oh, sorry.
One of mine was a guy.
So I screwed it up.
Oh, I lied to everybody. I didn't mean to. I'm going to go back to Larry. And Larry said a question up here that I really liked, and I couldn't fit it in at the time. So right here, did you guys feel the book was written honestly? And I think that's a good question. And I'm going to put his next part as opposed to a story. So do you think he actually did these things, that he tasted these things when he was 4, that he had these experiences, or is he just embellishing? I'd like to know your opinions.
I think
Yeah.
Go.
Go ahead, Nick.
I think it is a true reflection of his Scottish heritage, and that's what we got.
Good answer. Good answer. All right. And next. I'm getting to you, Dave. There we go.
Okay. So I thought there was a little bit of creative writing going on there. And memories going back to a certain age, I think about myself. I can't remember that. So how does everybody else do it?
Could we say maybe it's his reality? Maybe. And maybe he still believes it? Possibly?
Yeah, I'd be saying it's a true story. Like he's
Okay.
adding to it all the rest, and the other one is reading through it. Like, it's not edited. It's not like it's a rough read at some points.
Yeah.
But I also think if you watch his videos and then you kind of read his book, you can kind of see things flow the same.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
It is him. He's doing it, but I think, like, especially the 4-year-old, all the rest. One, if the 4-year-old drank the amount that he's saying that he did, one, you're not picking up those flavors, and two, you're probably not remembering it.
Yeah.
Whether just because you're 4 or because you're a 4-year-old that's now crashed.
Drunk beyond measure with his cat beside him throwing up behind the garage. Right. Guys, I'm going to go back to some of the questions we didn't get before, or I didn't get to this one. He leaves his whiskey, or the Glasgow Whisky Club, in 2010. And I'm wondering if it's because he started doing his blogs in 2010. Now, he talks about there's a presenter, and Juliet says to him, "You could do a better job." And he says, "I agree." He gets hurt and he's off work for 2 months. His brother says, "You should do a vlog," and he does it. Do you think, I'm wondering why he quit the club? And as the president of the Alberta Scotch Society, I'm wondering if someone loves it so much, what kicks him out of there? What makes them leave? Do you guys think? Because I don't think he talks about it yet. He might later, but I've only read up to this point.
Yeah. So I think that the presenters just weren't challenging enough for him. They were too mundane, too pedestrian, too simple, and he wanted more. And I think when that lady said, "Hey, you should do this, you do a better job," I think that was the start of the end right there.
That's the idea. Okay.
Yeah.
I can go with that, Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else? We're good.
Well, I know a lot of the tastings and stuff I go for the actual juice, because a lot of times what's being said up front is exactly the same every time. Like,
yeah,
there's not much anymore. So when you're going to a tasting, it's because you're going to try something completely new, but you're going to be told, "Oh, look, it's malted barley. Look, here's a picture of the malting floor. Here's and it's,"
which we're not using anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. We now buy it from this company over here, but here's a couple of pictures from history. It can, I can see at some point that it becomes stale.
And we've been to so many of them. We really have. And for a 2-year period, I'm still going to 3 or 4 a week.
Oh, right? Yeah.
And it's sometimes because of the presenter's fantastic.
Oh, some of them.
And Jay, I loved seeing Jay.
But
I've had people, and I can't remember who it was at Keg and Cork, but they showed us the process, and they were an independent bottler. It was all about the wood. Yeah. And they kept talking about the wood, the process of the wood. And you get to learn certain things. When that ever happens, I'm really, really happy. The other things that make me happy is when we start on the drams right away, and you don't have to listen for a half an hour to what someone has to say that you've already heard. And that's why I started doing the welcome whiskeys at our things, because if I start yapping on, I want people to have something in their hands to kind of ease the process regardless beforehand. Yeah. So here's another one by Marcel, by the way. How are our friends in Edmonton's Bothy doing these days? Hard times. Yeah, the Bothy's reopening. Is it on Monday, June 1st, I think I heard? June 2nd, so that's the Tuesday. Tuesday, sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope for them and everyone there. Let's hope for all of them. Let's hope we bounce back. And we like the small businesses but we heard that they were trying to sell the business as well. And I don't know if anyone here has heard of anything beyond that. No, they haven't sold it. All right. So next question. Actually, no, I'm going to say what Ralfy does. And this goes back to what I really like about Ralfy. He actually rolls with it. He decides that, yes, maybe because he got the compliment, he could do a better job. Maybe because his brother said it. Or maybe because he had 2 months off and he was bored out of his mind. He actually jumped into it and he still did the vlogs. The first one was fantastic. The other 6, he said, were lackluster, but he's still stuck with it, and he's in a position now. It's not a money. He makes money on it, but he still has to work full time. It's not something that takes over his life. He's got 200,000 followers, I think. Oh, over 100,000. Sorry, I've just been corrected by my wife, and she's probably right, and most likely right. And if he had 1 million followers, I think he could take the time off, not work. But I think he would still want to do what he does because he's his own guy. So one of the things I really like about Ralfy, he does what comes up and what he feels like doing at the time. So I've got to respect that. Although he does say certain things which are a little bit off. So I'm going to give you another quote. To help develop and promote thinking, something the humanoids don't do enough of. So he uses the word humanoids, which I thought was a little bit weird a couple times. And I'm wondering if anyone else remembers these humanoid things. Oh, Laura showed me 135,000 subscribers. Good. So humanoids, can you remember other times when he did it? I think it was towards the beginning. And I don't know if it's a negative term. It's like or is it because he's a sci-fi fan? Because you watch his videos and he's got the TARDIS. And no, it's not a TARDIS. It's the one that kills them all. A Dalek? Help me out, Drew. You're a fan. Dalek up there.
Yeah.
So I think it's because he's a sci-fi fan, but I don't know if it's like a bad term or not. Anyone have an idea on this one or an opinion?
I took it to mean that he was distancing himself from the rest of people. Mm-hmm. He was putting space between there's Ralfy and then there's other people. And this was his way to distance.
So you think the humanoids are influenced by big corporate?
Yep, absolutely. It's that borderline. You have to wonder, is he conspiracy? Does he fall into that category where he tips on that edge and go, yeah, you know what? I don't trust big business. I don't trust the government. I don't trust people. I don't trust banks.
Yeah. So you think his hat's foil lined?
Could be. Could be.
All right.
Maybe. All right. And yeah, there's the quote there if you want to see it. So to help develop, no, let's go to the next one. This is kind of for Nicole. I was hinting at this before because he talks about blends, and Nicole and I have had this discussion before because I'm kind of a single cask malt guy, and Nicole's been on my back a little bit. Why don't you kind of delve into the blends a little bit more? So in that vein, I read this from him. Okay, so I want to find this there. I think this one. I find the range of blended Scotch available to me to be simply less than what I can experience of malts. He does like Teacher's Highland Cream, and he likes them, but he doesn't like them as much of his single malt. So I'm going to go back to Nicole. I'm going to put her on the spot, and I'm going to have her try to tell me about certain blends that I should try. Because she said she has, I could go to her place and we could try some fantastic blends. I want to know if she has any in mind right away.
Creative Whiskey Company has this amazing 20-year-old blend. I think I poured you a sample and sent it across to you. And it's just outstanding. It's actually one that Josh, Know Your Whiskey, put me on to. But blends showcase what amazing craft happens with a master blender. And you know what? Come on, we've had Davin on, we've had Dr. Don. Dr. Don is a master blender.
That's the one.
We geek out with him. And you think of all the whiskeys he's created, which are blends. So the other thing too is you look at the stats. Blended whiskey makes up more of the market than single malts, but we've been put onto this whole snobbishness that you can only drink single malt whiskeys.
Yeah.
And I agree. And it's a fantastic point. I just wanted to get the opinions, but I still do want to know if you have favorite blends out there that I should be trying. And people talk about the best blends out there and Johnny Walker Blue. And I tried Johnny Walker Blue and it's enjoyable, but it's not worth the money that I paid. But it was. I'm not going to say it wasn't enjoyable. Yeah. It was enjoyable.
Cask Isla, Johnny Walker Green.
I have
I'll
that.
stick with that one. I like green. Pick a compass box.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think,
They're all
I gotta
blends.
say, I like my compass boxes.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of really good blends. There's a lot of cheap. Yeah, I wouldn't go through there. Like, I mean, if you're talking some of the Grand Soul, the rest of the stuff, like the starter ones, they are what they are. But you want a good blend, pick a compass box. Like, it really doesn't matter which one you pick off the shelf.
Which one is that, Nick? I don't recognize that at all. Is that the one you mentioned to me already?
Yeah, the Creative Whiskey Company. Yeah, and what Drew says, Compass Box. Compass Box is the biggest blender that everybody seeks after. And they've got, what is it, Tobias and the Angel for $650? And now we've got Rogue's Banquet, which is over $300. People are buying it. People love it.
3-year-old.
but I look at it this way: if
And that looks great too. The Cask Courtney, that's fantastic.
Yep.
And I've got to say, that's another good one. One of my favorite really cheap whiskeys, like $35 ones, is the Adelphi blend. It really is. And it's cheap. It's a good blend, and it doesn't have tons of body at the end, but it's a really enjoyable dram for $35.
Yep.
So I wasn't trying to poo-poo it, Nick. I just wanted names. And I still like my single malts, or not just my single malts, my single barrel. That's still my favorite because it still feels like it's the most basic. But what you did say about Dr. Don, and Dr. Don's going to come on at a certain point with us with our book club, and we're going to do one with him and just his blends. We all respect him. We like what he says. He's an intelligent guy. Davin, same thing. He's passionate about Canadian whiskeys. And that did change my mind probably in the second or third week. So 2 months ago, roughly, is when I decided to start buying tons of Canadian blends. I'd been buying other blends and compass boxes for probably 2 years now. And I might have 8, which is not a lot compared to everything else I have, but probably 15 or 20 blends. So it represents 5% of what I have at home. But I'm open to the thought of trying different ones. And I think, Nicole, it's because of you. So I wanted to give you the kudos. Thank you very much.
So looking at the statistics from the liquor statistics coming out of the States this month was blends are down in the US and single malt is up.
Yep.
And I think it's all perception.
As to what's quality, right?
I'll tell people that if you put crappy single malt, crappy blends together, they're going to be a crappy whiskey. If you get good blends, you buy good whiskey and blend them together, well, it's got to be good whiskey. Like, just
All right. So, I agree. I
think
want to put things off because sorry. Go ahead, Dave. Finish it off.
No, I see things. Everything's kind of black and white to me. It's if you put bad whiskey together from 2 distilleries, it's still going to be bad whiskey. If you put 2 good distilleries together, it's going to be good whiskey. It just, I don't know. I see things pretty simple all the time.
Yeah, I mean, if you roll it over to an orchestra, if you've got one person that can play a violin or whatever instrument really well, that's a single cask, to the rest. You get a whole group of people that can play well, you've got a fabulous music.
Yeah.
If one guy can't play the trumpet and he's sitting in the middle, it doesn't matter how everybody else is playing, it's not going to be a good show or a good something to listen to.
Yeah.
So
some of the parts.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. All right. Next question, unless you have something to add there, Nick, I'll give you the last second.
I was just going to say, you know what, where I started to develop my love of blends was I went to Famous Grouse when they were still doing tours, and they had one of their blenders on from the floor doing the tour and talking about each step that they went through. And for that, it really struck home how much creative license they have when they create a blend, and how much work they put into it. So it's not a, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's as much dedication, if sometimes not more, than when you do a single malt. So that stood out for me.
I think it's your artistic side kind of coming out there, maybe.
Yeah.
But
You think?
the other side of it is a blend or a single malt, like getting away from the single cask. A blend or a single malt just means the same distillery or different distilleries.
Yeah.
Like
They're still blending things
exactly.
together. They're still making-
A Oban 14, a whatever else is who knows how many barrels that somebody has blended all together to give that flavor.
Yeah.
Blended internally or blended externally.
Exactly. So unless you're going single cask, the big difference is did they add a grain or not?
Yeah, maybe.
It's all a blend.
Right there to the let's say that the added grain, and that really changes it. Although I like my blended malts a lot as well.
Yes.
I really do.
Yep.
So I'm going to get back to the book. I get the
Can I ask a
impression that oh, sorry.
Do you see this message from Larry?
Yep. Well, I put it up there, so I want to see it. Let's have you answer it as well, there, buddy. I was going to tie it in, but you go for it.
Yeah, all the shows are starting to move into October, November, and me personally can't see it happen this year. Like
Okay.
if you can't be that close together, you need a really big venue to space everything out. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
And
Well, I'm hoping for the whiskey experience in September. It's the second week in September. I'm really looking forward to it. They haven't canceled it yet. I really want to go, so I'm hoping it happens. But in Banff, it's an open area. There's one place, but they have the rooms. Maybe they have half the rooms full, but then they're possibly losing money. I don't know.
well, and for me as a vendor there, I don't want to see half capacity.
No.
Like, it's unfortunate, but
I could see Banff if they wanted to, since you're still up the art festival or the art center. Yeah. So I could almost see there's enough room there to move it outdoors.
Not just outdoors, but across that mini field.
Yeah,
they've got
that's
two
what I
other
mean. It's like
buildings attached to it.
not be inside, like move it outside to make it room so that you can actually distance, that you can actually keep space between.
Yep.
I could see them doing that and letting it get past the dock.
And they have that stage as well, which is covered if they want to. So they've got the stage, they've got the Max Bell, they've got the big room. I can't remember what it's called that we were in last year.
Mhm.
I think they could do it and spread it out. And I would be very willing to walk back and forth. It's the master classes that they'd have to spread out through the building.
Yeah.
And maybe open up 2 rooms and have one person. So a great question there, Larry. And Nick.
So
I was just going to say, you know what, you got to wait for what the chief medical officer says, because it's still at a no share of food and no share of drinks. So pouring whiskey, as much as like Dave would be behind the table pouring whiskey, it's that potential cross-contamination that she may frown upon. And until you get that okay from her,
well, with our cask festival, we would give every customer a glass, and then we would fill that glass up multiple times, and that's gone. Like there's no way I'm going to fill your whiskey glass up multiple times.
No, it'd be you'd have to do it like the plastic
Little
little shock, and it's you fill it in the table, and it's like
And if you want
take
to,
one.
yeah, and if you want to drop it in your glass after we put it into a plastic single serve container, like I've been telling our other staff, I said, book these dates as if it's going to happen, but I don't think it will.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but it's there's a couple of different ways you might be able to sell it to Doc Hinshop, but I don't know.
I am hoping though. And maybe I shouldn't hope, and maybe I'm being irresponsible by hoping, but I'm hoping.
I wanted to see it down on the city streets where you could walk for 3 blocks and visit multiple vendors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That's my vision.
But then they'd have to shut it down to anyone but us. But that's okay. And we get the whole run of Banff Ave type thing. Let's do it.
You have a wristband. Well, I tell people, I'll pour. Anybody comes to my booth with a glass, I'll get a drink.
I don't care if you paid the money. I'm giving you the truth. All right, guys, I'm getting back to Ralfy. So we all get the distinct impression he does not like rich people. Okay, rich and powerful people get pished too. And I gotta put this on. I like this quote. Hopefully, I put it on. No,
What's
I
going
didn't
on
put
with
it.
your what's going on with your camera, Dolph? There you go.
Okay. I get the distinct impression that he doesn't like rich people, and rich people get pished too. I'm going to read the quote. Rich and powerful people get pished too. But this may include some different reasons for causation, usually guilt, contempt for others, self-loathing of themselves, all depending on how they make their money. So it's not that they feel bad or they get drunk. They get drunk because they're so horrible. Everything about them's horrible. He doesn't like it. Do you remember other parts of the story? Because this is where it rang true to me. Do you remember other parts of the story where he kind of mentions rich people? He talks about the clergy a couple times. He doesn't like the clergy, and that might be because of his job. But he doesn't like rich people. He doesn't like banks. He talked about that in the first chapter.
Well, he hates mortgage guys. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any other places where we get that? I was trying to think, and I was wondering if you guys had that.
Well, banks for sure.
Yep.
Mortgage was the one that stood out.
Okay.
Yeah, he's also talking the credit cards and all the rest. He's anti-debt.
But I read his list of things that rich people drink for, and I thought rich people could care less. They're just drinking because they're rich,
Yeah,
And they're happy, laughing at us.
Like they're not drinking because they're self-loathing. They're drinking because, hey man, I got too much money.
And they can afford really good alcohol too.
Yeah.
All right.
So I found that to be kind of off track. I just didn't understand that.
I'm going to continue with the not understanding Ralfy thing. And I don't want to be negative, but chapter 8 made no sense with the title. Okay. Because the chapter 8, the title is The Blogs and the Vlogs. And chapter 8, all he does is talk about alcoholism and those three people and how to avoid it. So I'm wondering if anyone else figured out why he called chapter 8 Blogs and Vlogs. Because maybe Nick, you read ahead already. Did it link to something else? I know there's another chapter, I think it's 10, Blogs and Vlogs. But this chapter, I didn't get the link between the title and that.
I didn't see the links either, but it seems like he has a big issue with alcoholism, and it doesn't really explain in this chapter why. And I know Drew had provided us some feedback from Sheila, where she talked about the drinking culture in the UK is much different than the North American culture. And perhaps he's reacting to that because he's seen the worst of the worst being in the business that he's in.
Yeah.
And this is just sort of his knee-jerk reaction, like, no, you don't drink, like, none of this.
Well, and I think you're right that he's seen so many alcoholics pass away, and that one where the family came in and they said, yeah, he's passed away. They go, oh yeah, we expected that. It was like a matter of fact. We knew it was coming. And Ralfy was like, he was, I don't know, he took it harder than the family did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You go back a couple chapters when he started in the mortuary service and went in and found that guy on the toilet.
Yeah.
And talked to the family, and was it the dad? The dad goes, yeah, we've just been waiting for this to happen.
Yeah, and apologizing for his son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Ralfy was just took him back because the guy's dead. Yeah, okay. We knew that was coming. And it just, yeah. That for me just that said a lot that he got to see alcoholism up close. What was the old girl at the funeral that was an alcoholic, and she was just a bitch?
And she smelled
that. Can I say that live?
You did. It's done.
The joy's alive.
Or not. The time's done. We're good. And he said she smelled like not anise, but I looked up the word that he used, and it's the same thing as like star of anise. It's a black licorice kind of smell that people use to cover it up. Because I didn't know the word he actually used, and I think my wife put it in here in the in the pictures. She actually had one. I can't find it. But so he really did have a problem with it. And the whole chapter really shows it. It really does. And the last part, if you remember the mother and the daughter, like he goes off on a weird tangent talking about Agnes and her daughter Amber. And Amber wanting to take over, and Agnes sold the house and went to, I think, Taiwan, stuff like that.
Well, I think Agnes saw what Amber was up to, and she got out of town.
Yep, that's what I was reading into that too.
Me too, but why did he tell that part of the story? Like, I'm trying not to be negative. Like I said, I'm trying to find reasons, because the title of the chapter is Blogs and Vlogs. That's the third alcoholic he talks about. He talks about one, the street cleaner, which everyone likes. Talked about that lady there, right? And the third one, this lady who worked at the hospital, I believe, when they delivered things to the mortuary. I think she worked there.
And her husband was the alcoholic.
What's that?
Her husband died from alcoholism, right?
This one?
Well,
Okay.
yeah, she was a gin drinker.
Right. And he beat her as well. That was it. He talked about, she said she fell down or hit the table and she had the bruise.
Yeah.
Got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. Other than the last paragraph of the chapter, I don't know why he called it that.
He called it that. Okay. And so chapter 7's kind of a write-off for me with the philosophers. Chapter 8, he talks about the alcoholism. And I think maybe on his blog or on YouTube, he might have gotten a little bit of flack from people thinking that he was promoting alcoholism. And he does take time in his productions when he talks to people about being, just like in this chapter, you have to know yourself and you have to be responsible. So he talks about that. And I think this chapter might have had to do with his blog. That's the only link I could do. So blogs and vlog, alcoholism relating to why he talks about it enough on his channel. I might be reaching, but that's as far as I can get.
Well, that's the best stretch I've seen. So
Yeah,
Let's do it.
I'd buy that for $1.
And chapter 9, I liked because he talked about the whiskey festivals, and I really like whiskey festivals. Let's talk about the things he liked.
Hang on a minute here.
Yes.
He like, it kind of bothered me that he would go up to the table and say, "Hey, what do you have under the table?"
Yeah,
like that bothered me a little bit.
People have said the same thing to you, Dave. Is that why?
Well, with the liquor board, we don't have anything under the table because they can come into our booth and they can go through all of our bags, all of our stuff, and if they find something that's not listed, it's bad news. They take it. They can find you. Yeah. So in the old days, I always had something under the table.
Yeah.
But we still do. If you the hour before, you still have the, I don't know what it's called,
VIP
hour.
the VIP experience,
So
and you have it for them. But after the hour, you're supposed to take it away.
Yeah, I never did.
you can still serve it. They usually do put it away because the people that are there for the first hour have paid more for that.
Yeah.
So I have had a few occasions to a few of the reps that I know, like Jay was one all the time. You didn't quite make it to him in the first hour. You pop by, and after you've said hi, chatted for a little bit, all the rest of the stuff, just like, you got any more of that the VIP left? And he'd usually pull something out. But I'd never do it for somebody I don't know.
No, and that's you're right. Yeah. You see the same people all the time, and you want them to try something that you've got that they don't normally get on the open market. Yeah. And
all right, I try to tell you the truth. I do. I do. I talk to them, and if I know them, it's right away that they just show it to me and they give it to me. And I've been to enough that they know my face often, and it's a nice feeling. Actually, they call you by name. It's kind of cool. But when you're with other people, it's a little bit off-putting because it's like, how do they know you? Well, I go to a lot of tastings. I'm sorry.
I drink a lot.
I drink a lot, and I pay for it. But everyone stick around. I'm just going to sign off. We're at the hour mark, 59:17. So stick around, but we're going to do this. So let's get my dram. Let's toast everybody if we can. Whiskey brothers and sisters, that's it. That's our night. Thank you very much for the nostalgia. Thank you for the insight, everybody on the panel. Thank you, my malt mates, for being out there, as Ralfy would say. So here's the good company. Here's the good whiskey. Here's the good books. Good books. Here's the good conversation. So I was looking at my other camera because I go back and forth in one and the other. And here's to Kent, the whiskey ass, for supplying some whiskey to me this week that we talked about on Wednesday to promote what we were doing today. Thanks to Sean for this right here so we can compare it tonight. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, Dave, for getting us the samples, which you're going to do soon, I hope, for next week when we use the glendronach and the one that Ralfy didn't think was important or as good, which we're disagreeing with him with. And we seem to be doing that today more than ever. Hopefully next week, not as much, but that's okay. So finally, here's to seeing you all next week here on Saturday, June the 6th. June the 6th for our final edition of the Alberta Scotch Society and Friends After Dram, talking about Ralfy's book. And next week, you're going to see something online about this book and how we are going to promote that and traveling around Canada and having fun with Blair and Davin. You'll see something. I'll do like a 2-minute intro and put that on YouTube, and people will see that, and you'll see what we're doing. But we've got 1 week left with Ralfy. We've got chapter 10, chapter 11, and the epilogue, and we will see you all then. Have a fantastic night, and thank you ever so much, guys.
All right. Night.
You guys have a good night.
I got to.